Hey everyone, excited about this episode. Thanks for joining the Healthcare Digital Marketing Podcast. I have Dr. Phelps here, and we're going to jump into really some great insights on just how to increase profitability, especially in the dental space. Dr. Phelps has a lot of experience, not just only being a dentist himself, but being an entrepreneur. I think you and I met at a dental event, and then we saw the synergy connected from that point. And then also, I mean, you have a lot going on. I think you have a bestseller book on Amazon. You're running a podcast. You're certified in many things, such as the Colby. You have a few softwares that you're managing. I mean, you got a lot going on, so I don't know how you keep up, but glad to have you on this episode to talk through a lot of those things. Before we open up into some of the main topics of this episode, would love for you to just give some background of just your experiences, who you are, and where you're from.
Yeah, thanks, Tamar. It's kind of funny. They say, necessity is the mother of invention. And all of kind of my product services and companies that I've developed have all come out of that need. and
Yeah.
which is a good blessing and a curse all at the same time, right? Apparently I'm pretty
Yeah.
needy to have to create all these things. But I graduated dental school in 2003 and came to Charlotte, North Carolina. Joined my wife's dentist, who'd been her dentist since she was in high school here in town.
Oh,
And
wow.
he had a little small practice, a little fee-for-service practice that he had renovated an old house in Matthews, North Carolina. And it was just a really good opportunity. And my
Yeah.
original partner, Grimes, he was really good about letting me, spend his money on my crazy marketing ideas to get myself patients. Um,
Right.
because I needed new patients, right? And he had had associates in the past, none of them ever worked out. Come to find out, is because he didn't have enough new patient flow in his practice to support him, right? So
Yeah.
I kind of took it upon myself to go find him, right, to bring him to me. And through that success, translated to multiple practices that we built, and since then, some of the companies that I've developed as a result. So.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So you saw it from a not just a what you're really good at is helping people, right? Especially from an oral care standpoint, but really just making your business profitable, making it work by getting those patients and then looking at your marketing, saying, hey, we have to convert these leads that are coming in, but then also retain these patients as a part of the practice growth. So you have a book coming out, I think in 2022 about dental marketing. Can you speak a little bit on that?
Yeah. So what I've done over these years is spent a lot of time studying not only the marketing side of things. So I kind of look at the whole new patient cycle as a coin. And there's really two sides to the
Yeah.
coin to do it well. It's the lead generation side, which is all the things we need to do, which I call the attraction stage of the cycle, right? To attract enough quantity and quality of new patients to reach our goals, whatever those are.
Yeah.
And then we have the other side of the coin, which is what I call lost opportunity. Okay. And that's like the attendance. What do we do to answer more phone calls, schedule more patients, and make sure they show up for their appointments? Because if they don't
Right.
come into the office, then it's a wasted expense, right, on the marketing side.
Yeah.
If we, in the attendance phase, if we don't get them to say yes to case acceptance, it's a wasted marketing expense if they don't come back. If we
Right.
lose them out the back door due to attrition, it costs us more to replace them. So the book is really an in-depth dive into all of the things that I've studied in human behavior and marketing, and trying to give doctors a roadmap in all these areas to maximize every step of the process. Because the better they can get at each stage, the better their
Right.
return can be, right? The faster they're going to be able to hit their new patient goals and thus hit their practice goals as a result.
Right. Right. No, I love that. And when does this book come out?
Well, hopefully we're slated for about March is when it should be due. And it's not just like my first book, which is on Amazon. This is a full-on textbook style, so it's gonna be pretty good. I've never had to write a textbook before. That was interesting.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. It's, I appreciate you saying those things because a lot of times, as I'm on the side of the marketing aspect of helping dentists get new patients, but then it's also if you, to your point, if you get those leads coming through the funnel through Google Ads, Facebook Ads, SEO, whatever the strategy is, it's you really have to look at, to your point, several different layers, especially from a profitability conversion standpoint, not just the leads coming in the funnel, but can we convert these leads? Can we retain these leads? There's a lot of other steps in the funnel to make sure that you're keeping people happy after you convert them. So I appreciate you saying that and what you're doing to just help these doctors be more profitable. it comes to working with, other dentists, are you also involved with just helping them from or looking at their data and looking at their numbers, coaching them? Are you doing those type of things to, outside of just writing books to help dentists be more profitable in their practice?
Yeah, and that's kind of why I wrote the book. Was my main purpose, and I'll probably have video trainings that will follow each section to kind of go into more detail. Obviously, I'm willing to any dentist that reached out to me, they've known over the years, I'm always willing to help them, give them advice and counsel on what I see. But like most of the things, I realize when I catch them at a certain stage, they've already dropped a lot of opportunity leading up to that, right? And so I'm trying to
Yeah.
retrain them to know we got to think about some of these other things first, because not only what we say in our ads matters, but the order in which we do things actually really matters. So
Yeah.
let's trace it back to
Yeah.
the source and get it done right.
Right. No, that's awesome. So, and you mentioned 7 pillars of marketing. Love that concept. And so, talk about the attraction phase or stage, where just help the audience understand what that means as it relates to marketing.
Yeah. So, I like to try to make things simple. I have to break complex things down and make it and simplify as much as I can, just so I can understand it. And what I found is when I do
Yeah.
that for myself, and that's my own process, it tends to work out pretty well when I try to explain it that way to others. So to me, that's what marketing is, from this, how do I attract enough quantity and quality of new patients? But the mistake I see most doctors making is, they'll come up to me at courses where I'm teaching and whatnot and go, "Hey Phelps, what's that one thing I can do to get me 100 new patients?" you know,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, okay. So what I'm hearing is, there's this silver bullet, this magic bullet that you want. And I've got to tell you exactly where to go, what to do, where to spend it on, what to say, and it'll be a no brainer. It'll work for you 100% of the time. And I'm like, so you're asking me to pick the medium for you. Like, where's this magic place that I'm going to get all these new patients from? The source, if you will. When the
Right.
fact of the matter is that's the last step in the process. That's the last pillar, not the first. So the first question I always
Yeah.
ask them in our first pillar is, who's your market? Like, who are you actually trying to get into the door? Right?
Right.
Retirees, men versus women, working people. Are you looking for a certain niche procedure like dental implants or hybrids or sleep or something like that? Because how you
Right.
answer that question, who's your market, could totally and radically change where you're going to put your next phase, which is your messages, is the next pillar.
Right.
And so in this day and age, whenever we're so crazy and distracted and we all have 1,000 things to do, people out there, when they see advertisements, they hear them, they're reading them, they're just scanning them. Okay. They're scanning them
Yeah.
because they don't
Oh,
have
yeah.
time to give them the detail they deserve. So if there's something that
Right.
doesn't catch their attention right off the bat, okay, and grab their
Yep.
focus, then you don't have a chance to influence them to call or come in. So your
Right.
message to me are like, what are your headlines, okay, of the story? The thing that's going to grab their attention, go, oh, wait, what's this? Okay, let me stop what I'm doing and let me read more. From there,
Right.
then it's all about your content is the third pillar. So now what's the meat of this thing going to be? And for me, content is
Yeah.
about emotions and what can we generate in the advertisement using pictures and words and colors can actually generate emotions. And then what stage are
Yeah.
they in the buying cycle, right? Are they somebody who's
That's
just,
so important.
yeah, do they even know they have a problem? Maybe that's what they're looking for. Okay.
Right.
Versus maybe they already know they have a problem, but this type of person is just looking for the different options to that problem. Okay. They only heard one
Right.
option at their first visit. Now they want to know if they have other options. Or maybe
Right.
they're at the third phase, which is the best phase. They already know all the options. They're just looking for the best person to do it, the authority. Right. And
Yep.
so you might
Yep.
want to target your content to a different phase. Because again, that first phase is nice, getting somebody in who for an emergency, let's say, who doesn't realize they have a problem yet, okay, or is afraid to find out what the problem is. But it's like telling somebody they got cancer sometimes. Right? There's this shock value that's there when
Yeah.
you actually find out what their real problem is. And it's hard to take somebody from
Right.
that shock to let's close this treatment today. Right. Versus at least
Right. Right.
when they're in the phase of looking for options or they're looking for the expert, well, guess what? The shock's over. Now they're ready to hear what you have to say. Okay. So you can
Exactly.
radically change
Exactly.
who you attract by your content. Your offer is the fourth cycle, or I mean, the fourth pillar. Okay. Different types of offers will dictate the quality of person that comes into your practice.
Right.
If I've got somebody versus a $99 special versus somebody who's coming in for a free car wash, but they're paying me in full for my exam, cleaning, x-rays. Hey, those are two very different people. And one of
Oh
those
yeah.
people has a better chance to be in my practice for the long run and pay my full fees. So
Right.
I can tell you which one I want to have. So we got to worry about the
Yeah.
quality of our offer, right? We can add more influence, the science of influence. That's one of the things I'm trained in, such as like social proof. When you start talking about a procedure that you want to do more of, or let's say you're talking about Invisalign in your advertising as a promotion. Right. Well, if patients don't see evidence that you've done Invisalign on other patients, then they're always thinking to themselves, am I the first? And I can tell you right now, nobody likes to be the first. So just putting the social proof information out there that, hey, to read 400 positive reviews from our Invisalign patients, check out our website, right? Or just putting a couple of testimonials on there from people who've gone through the procedure, showing before and after photos. Here's a couple of cases. Right. All of that stuff amplifies the response, right? And adds more certainty that, you know what, this isn't his first rodeo or her first rodeo. You know what, I am calling the right place. Okay. And once you've gone through all of those 5 things, now we can figure out what strategically makes the most sense for the medium. For, is it direct mail? Is it online? Is it offline? Right? Is it grassroots? Is it internal marketing, et cetera? And last but not least, of course, our last pillar after that medium is tracking, right? Because we don't have data to back up what we're doing. And it's like, throwing a dart at a dartboard, but we're blindfolded and the dartboard's behind us. It's just
right. Exactly. Now you broke that down so eloquently, and then also just being able to help the audience understand really what it takes. And I think a part of that too is really the A/B testing. Like you have to test, because you may not always get it. You're not going to always get it right on the first try at that. So it's really understanding all those pillars, really understanding your audience, like you mentioned, understanding their pain points, and then coming up with a strategy. But then sometimes it's testing to see, what's going to convert better. And I think that's a lost art sometimes with, really catching the right patient that you want in that practice or in that business through the testing efforts. Because then when you test, you can look at 2 different data points to say, okay, this one worked better than the other. And then you can also test against a control, right? Where it's like, okay, here's where we know, over time, this is what's worked. Now we're gonna, change that, or we're gonna test against that control through these 2 different tests, A and B, for example. So I think, definitely you got to take those steps like you're talking about, but then also test and measure that data. Going back to the 7 pillars, what like help our audience understand how to capitalize on attendance. So once you get through all that first phase, like how do you capture the attendance aspect of that?
Yeah, so the attendance is really 3 main areas, right? It's missed calls, it's poor conversions, and it's the no-show rate, right? And from my tracking data, we see that the average office doesn't answer 1/3 of their new patient phone calls. And that's for offices spending nothing in marketing a month to up to $2,000 a month in marketing. For those offices spending over $2,000 a month in marketing, well, unfortunately, the missed call with new patients creeps up to about half sometimes. Okay. It's, and now in this age of COVID, when we're down team members and everybody's struggling to find good people, the numbers just got worse, not better. On the conversion side, even if we do answer, we only make an appointment around 1/3 of the time. Okay. So about 34%. And that was what my problem was originally, when I started looking at why I was spending $36,000 a month in marketing to get 60 new patients for my efforts, 30 at one of my offices and 30 at a different office. And come to find out, we didn't answer the phone 254 times a month for new patient calls. And when my team did answer, and when they did answer, they only made an appointment 24% of the time. So I'm like, holy crap, the problem's not on the marketing side, it's on my team side, right? So talk about, a gut punch. And then on the no-show side, the nationwide average for no-shows is like 17% right now. We're with the top 10% of offices only being at 7 to 8%, which is still terrible. By the way. Okay. So it comes down to understanding why are we unable to answer more missed calls, okay, and doing some things to satisfy that. So for my example, I had 2 people at my front desk at each of my 2 offices. So when I found out I wasn't answering 254 new patient calls that I paid for every month, what do you think the first thing I did was to solve that problem? I hired 2 more people at each office, right? 1 for each more office. And I thought I got to throw bodies at the problem, right? The data now justifies the expense. So probably before that, I didn't think I needed another team member. But after that, I was like, holy crap, yes, I do. And they need to be up there tomorrow. Right?
Yeah.
So there's simple little things you can do when you understand the pattern. Like, why are you, you're missing them, number one, that's the harsh realization, but then going into why. Another thing my data showed was the majority of our calls were going unanswered during high demand times. When we first got to the office, during the lunch, nobody was there, and when we were closed. Well, guess what I did? So I made sure that during the mornings, nobody was doing any other task except being ready to answer the phone. And then we staggered the team members' lunches, so somebody was there to cover, right? So again, when you know the data and why you're missing these things, then the solutions aren't that hard, right? But if, I always say, you don't know what you don't know about the data.
Right.
On the conversion side, it's really about understanding the mindset of the person that's calling. So half the time I see we don't schedule an appointment because the patient's mindset's in the wrong place and the team doesn't really have the training and expertise to get them over that mindset. Okay.
Yeah.
The other half of the time we don't make an appointment, it's because of our team's mindset. And they're kind of prejudging this person and they think they know what they're saying or asking for, but they really don't understand this person. And they're not asking the right questions. And therefore they push them off, they go unscheduled, when in fact that could have been a great patient who would have paid your full fees. Okay.
Right.
So it's really more about understanding both sides of that coin, strategies to help overcome the patient mindset and how not to be biased and overcome your own strategies. So you don't get in the way of making the appointment with the patient, And on the show rate stuff, it's just as simple as getting more commitments out of that person to show. When you get a real commitment out of somebody, the behavioral science studies show us that people tend to do what they say they're going to do. They follow through with it. The problem is we're not getting real commitments out of them on the telephone. And it's as simple as a voluntary commitment. So people got to have a choice, right? If they didn't have something to choose, A or B, then they didn't really commit to it. Okay. They were told to do it. They were forced to do it. They felt coerced into it, which means they may or may not show up because of that. So instead of saying, doctors think they're giving people choices when a patient says, I need an appointment, and the team member says, okay, how about Wednesday at 2? Nope, can't do that. All right, well, how about Monday at 4? Nope, can't do that. Wednesday at 8? Okay, I guess I could do that, right? And in that person's mind, they're thinking, well, I gave them 3 options, but the reality is, no, you didn't. You told them one thing, they said no. You told them another thing, they said no. You told them another thing, and they said no. Well, what you didn't realize is there's this principle called reciprocity that people actually hate to say no to you multiple times in the same moment. So if you keep asking for something after no, you're going to get a yes at some point.
Okay? Right.
But because they weren't committed to it, that's why they're not showing. Versus going morning or afternoon. Pick afternoon. This week or next week. This week. Okay. Wednesdays or Thursdays. Wednesdays. 8 o'clock. 10 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Great. Then I got you down for this Wednesday, 8 o'clock. So every choice they made more and more and more of a commitment to show now. Okay. Automatically.
Right.
And these are just some of the simple things I talk about in the book, how I got my no-show rate down from around that 17% rate to less than 1%. Okay.
Wow. So Dr. Phelps, I mean, just great insights and just the experience and knowledge from, what you actually went through and how you solved those problems. But let's talk about just from a technicality standpoint, like, what do you, like, I know you, because we know each other, I know you have softwares out there. Like, how are you using these softwares to now help other doctors really improve on their, no-show rates, their conversions, with, leads coming through the funnel, the quality assurance of understanding the calls that are coming in and how your team can improve on converting those calls. So I'd love if you just share some of those things as well.
Yeah, I have a whole telephone training program that I offer dentists. It's kind of like a self-study. It's a video training. It's the same training I give in my scheduling agents at Golden Goose Schedule, right? And it's what I use to get my own team's conversions above 80% and our show rate down to less than 3%. And it's what my Golden Goose Schedule agents have done. And now they're over 90% with their conversions. So they've taken it to a whole other level. But ultimately, it comes down to, I can provide them the data. That's easy to do. But what I tried to do, and that's why I built the call center with Golden Goose Scheduling, is too many offices just didn't want to train the team, right? Or they're down team members, right? They need help or what have you. So what I tried to do was create the solution to the problem, which is really, in my true opinion, we force team members to multitask at the front desk. Okay.
Yeah.
they're constantly having to shift their focus. They have to wear 1,000 hats. And going back to Colby, one of those things I'm certified in, the way people are instinctively built, right? It's kind of like, what kind of car are they? Are you an SUV? Are you so you can go off road? Are you a Ferrari that likes to drive on the highway? Again, the type of car you are doesn't change. Okay. So most of our team members that we attract at the front are built to not multitask. They're built to start a task, finish that task, then move on to the next task. Right. So when we force them to multitask and constantly shift, it's chaos up there, and they don't do it as well and it's productive. So what I've been trying to teach doctors is we need to get more things off our front desk team members' plates, right, by outsourcing. So in my own office, I got rid of confirmation calls. I got rid of all the insurance verifications and AR follow-up and whatnot. There's people out there that can do that better than my own team. Okay. And that's why with the call center with Golden Goose, we took the telephone calls out with the new patient calls. So my team is there to focus on existing patient calls and to make sure that existing patients in the office have the best experience possible. And the most important function, right, they leave with their next appointment for treatment, hygiene, both, whatever that is. Okay. So now I'm like, look, the solution's out there, right? Let's offload these things for our team and get them focusing on how they're built. Focus on the task at hand.
Gotcha. So your Golden Goose, product really helps, take some of the pressure off of trying to take all the calls, and then also really helping convert some of those calls. I think even when you think about COVID, right, where people are not working, people are getting laid off, or just not being able to find great talent. I think a lot of businesses are struggling with just the overall, if they're getting volume, having the right people up at the front, not multitasking like you're talking about, but being able to just answer the phones. So I think what you're talking about is you have a solution to be able to take that load off their plate, to just really help them be more profitable, help them, see more patients, help them grow. So is this exclusive in a certain area, or can this occur everywhere across the U.S.?
Yeah, we work with general dentists and specialty offices across the U.S. and Canada. So here's a quick example. So one of our clients comes to us. He's spending $5,000 a month in direct mail. Okay, and he was ready to call up the direct mail company, pissed off because he was only seeing 7 patients a month for $5,000. And he's telling me it's not working. And I'm like, you're wrong. You just don't know what you don't know. I said, so let my scheduling agents, because I knew what his team's conversion data was, by the way, too, and his missed call rate. So I said, let my team, the Golden Goose, take over, and let's just see what happens. So no other changes, same mailing lists going out every month, 5,000. So the next month we got them 32 patients. Okay. Same stuff. The third month, 61 patients. So we got him up to 61 patients a month from that point on with the same spend. Now, how do you think that affected his ROI? Right.
Oh man, it was huge. That was huge for him.
Huge. So that's what I mean. Everybody needs backup. Even if we're just backup to the team, it can ring a couple of times. And if the team is busy and distracted, then we answer and take over it. Right. Or what I do recommend is the best way to do it is let our team take them all, new patient calls, not your existing ones, and get that stress off their plate. So.
Gotcha. And does this, are you able to do it after hours as well?
Yeah. We're covering 7 to 7, East Coast to West Coast.
Awesome. And so now let's talk about where, we talk about attendance, the overall attraction stage, and then let's talk about the attrition stage. So when you think about attrition, it's really, to your point, and what I've read about, your material as well, is just a silent killer for, marketing ROI and production overall. So like, how do you help really coach on retaining, patients as well?
Yeah, retention is an interesting thing. So there's a lot of reasons why we lost them, right? We dropped the ball.
Yeah.
And so the idea is to identify as many of those and say, how many of these do we actually have control of, right? Could we have done something different? If it's because, I'm a fee-for-service office and they just didn't buy into our philosophy and want to pay, well, that's one thing. Okay. To me, I'm not going to change my way of doing things and the type of patient I want to treat just because it doesn't work with a couple of people, right? But if there's certain things we can control, like I said, we want to create as many anchors to the practice as possible. So first and foremost, I want to make sure I got a good relationship with that patient. and I've got some kind of connection to them. So I spend a lot of time, and I teach this in my persuasion courses on how to make those connections. So they see that I like them, and therefore they're going to like me. And if they like me, then they're less likely to disappear and go elsewhere. I want my team to make connections with them and anchor themselves to that relationship. So when they think of the office, it's not just the dentist, it's Sally that cleans my teeth, or Jill at the front desk, who's awesome and amazing. I want to create services that anchor them to my practice. That's why I love dental membership plans. So if they don't have dental insurance, and I can offer them a program or a platform to give them the sense that they have insurance, well, guess what? And nobody else in my town's doing it. Very few are. Where are they going to go?
Yep.
Because I've got them anchored more to me now as a result. Yep. So it's things like that, like trying to create as many of those anchors as possible to keep them here and keep them happy over the long run. We give back to our patients. I'm a big believer in reciprocity, giving to them. So, I do a patient appreciation party every year for them. Okay. So it's just a day, all my existing patients, free food, free live music. We have like carnival style games and petting zoos and pony rides for the kids. And I just give away a bunch of crap, man, TVs and laptop computers, and just my little way of saying thank you for being my patient. But at the same time, also I leverage those events, and I say, but if you know anybody looking for a good dentist, bring them with you. Right. Yep. And so we actually get a bunch of new patients from people that they bring to our events, which is kind of cool. But we get to them. We support our community. We do a day of free dental care every year, either through Dentistry from the Heart or Freedom Day, like for vets and those kind of things. And there are two very great programs to give back to those in need in our community. But what my patients know is by supporting us, by being our patient, you help us support this community. So you're doing your part to help this community as a result. So they take ownership in what we're doing because they had a hand in it, So these are the things that anchor them to our practice and keep them from going elsewhere.
Right. Now, that's awesome. And I just, when I think about, a lot of businesses here in Charlotte, I don't know of many doing what you just said, like just really giving back to the patients and really connecting them to your why, which is you really want to help the community, right? Have good oral health care and protect their overall health, right? And so I think when you invest in your customers through obviously providing great service, but helping them see your why, to your point, they buy into that why, and there's a belief, and then you're not selling them on, referring their neighbor or their family member. They want to, get someone else in your, hemisphere of like dental services to be able to, experience the same results. And so I think that's so important. It's a lost art, a lot of the times when it comes to, just really taking care of the customer, where they're not a number, but more so they come in and they know they're going to get a great experience, and they're part of the why that you're invested in. Dr. Phil, let's talk about the last step or the last phase, which is apprehension. So talk about that as it relates to the pillars of marketing.
Yeah, so apprehension is all about the time we're in right now. What do we do in times of uncertainty? Maybe a global uncertainty like we have with this pandemic with COVID. Could be financial crisis, could be an economic crisis, who knows, right? But the idea is that people are unsure about their surroundings. Maybe it's just a local uncertainty, something happening in your town, who knows? But it's this idea that there's apprehension present, keeping people from doing what they would normally want to do. And so what's interesting, in the acceptance phase of treatment, we talk about case acceptance and how normally we have two styles of patients that come into our practice. We have proactive mindset patients and we have reactive mindset patients. The proactive mindset patients being the ones who fill 80% of our chairs, right? That's who come in for their 6-month cleanings because they don't want things to get worse. Who do the fillings and the crowns because they don't want their teeth to get worse. Versus our reactive folks are the ones who don't do the treatment until it hurts, they're in pain. That becomes top of mind. And they do the root canals, they do the implants, they do the other bigger, the scaling root planings, they do the other bigger ticket things. And so what I would try to teach most doctors is how to get most of your patients into that proactive mindset category, because that once they're in that right mindset, they're automatically going to be more receptive to the treatment you're going to recommend. Okay.
Yep.
Versus the reactive folks, we still have a strategy for them, but we're going to convert more who left of their own accord might be reactive in their past behavior, but you can actually influence them to change that, be more proactive in this moment. But what COVID's done in times of apprehension, which is crazy, is it totally has flipped the mindset. So pre-COVID, we saw the proactive folks, but we hardly saw the reactive ones until it was too late, right? Until it was in pain. Well, when apprehension happens, it flips. So the majority of the person you start seeing is the reactive folks. Okay.
Yep.
And that's when we opened up our doors. I remember that first day, we had all this money invested in PPE equipment and protocols. And we told the patients, look, we're going to text you. There's no chairs. Don't come sitting in the waiting room. We're going to text you when it's time. We'll let you know when it's okay to come in. Like, we're trying to help them be as safe as possible. Had all this equipment outlined, how we're going to keep them protected. And we opened the doors, and we didn't think anybody would show up. So we had a little 2-minute team meeting, because we figured people would wait for us to text them. No, there were like 6 people in the waiting room, all standing next to each other. Nobody was wearing a mask. Nobody cared. They're just looking for the chairs. Like, where are the chairs? Like, we set them down. Not one person ever asked us about any of the protective stuff we had done or precautions we had taken to keep them safe. Okay. They didn't care. Okay. Because that was not. So now this mindset shifts to somebody who was pre-active before COVID, and a time of apprehension. I call them risk tolerant. Okay. That's who this is, the risk tolerant mindset now, versus the other patient who was proactive before COVID is now the risk averse mindset. And that's our patients who used to come in all the time, and now they're not moving if they don't feel safe. Okay. Those are the ones that were really scared about getting COVID, and we're waiting for a vaccine was even on the horizons before they think about going anywhere else. Okay. So this paradigm shift changes. So the reactive folks are great because they are super motivated to get in. They're writing big checks. We all did well the last couple of months of 2020 because of that, and have been riding that momentum. But the problem is doctors haven't been communicating the right messages to their risk averse crowd to get them back in sooner. So a lot of doctors are noticing this gap in treatment that's happening now. When you run out of the risk tolerant folks and you haven't got the risk averse folks to make them feel secure enough to come back in yet. So doctors now are asking this question. I get it almost daily. They're like, and I see it on social media. They're like, is anybody else having a cancellation problem? Anybody else having this no-show problem? Used to, we didn't have to confirm people. They just were just showing up. Now the reactive folks are going back to their old behavior. No showing, canceling. I got time. I don't have to do it right now anymore. Okay. But our risk averse folks haven't come back in. So now there's this gap in treatment. So that's what the answer, as you said, is really you got to combat the two from the get-go. So you got to continually marketing and up your external marketing with the right messages to attract more of those risk tolerant folks. Because even though you may have run out of them in their practice, they're still out there looking to get in somewhere. Okay. And they're hearing they can't get in everywhere. So they're still looking. At the same time, while you're externally marketing to get more of those folks in to buy yourself time, you're also internally marketing to your risk averse crowd. And it's the messages of, hey, here's why we have virus-free air every 5 minutes, because I got freaking every medical grade HIPAA filter on the market. Here's how we're safe. Here's how we're cold fogging. Here we're doing this, we're doing that. There's never been a COVID outbreak in a dental office. Viruses aren't new to us. We've gone through them before, the avian flu, the swine flu, the bird flu, right? All those things. So, you're communicating with them. You want to show those people who aren't coming in that you're so busy right now, social proof, going back to one of Cialdini's principles, that you could even get in, you could not even get them in now if you had to. You're just reaching out to them to let you know that you're so busy, you're trying to schedule them for next month, or you may not be able to get them in this year at all. Right. So those are the kind of messages, social proof and scarcity, that can influence those risk averse folks to come back in sooner and close that gap so there won't be a gap in treatment.
Right. Now that's awesome. And I guess the last question for you would be back to COVID. Is there like one shift you would say that needs to happen for, general dentist, or even, any type of business, dental specifically, where they need to retrain their mindset on profitability going into 2022, outside of all the things that you just mentioned, which are all great, and there's a lot of action steps from here. But is there's one thing you're like, I really learned from 2021 that I need to make sure I'm doing more of in 2022?
Yeah, I think the big movement, what I'm trying to teach my coaching clients right now is that convenience is everything. Okay. Look at all the different companies that are blowing up because they've made things more convenient.
Yep.
So, I'll say prior to COVID, there was already this movement, like the average everyday person, for the most part, values time, or I'm sorry, values money over time.
Right.
Okay? So if they'll save money, they'll put more time into it.
Yeah.
Whereas probably before COVID, the average entrepreneur or business owner probably values time over money. If I can save more
Yep.
time, then I'll spend more money. Right. But
Right.
now we're at this age where we're so distracted because of social media. We have so many things on our to-do list that the average person now is to the point where they feel they don't have time.
Yep.
Now they're in that mindset, time is valued over money.
Right.
So what sells in those times? Convenience. This is
Yep.
why, like this morning, I just got DoorDash to bring me freaking Chick-fil-A chicken minis for $20. And I could have driven 15 minutes up the damn street and back and done it myself. But I'm like, yeah, but that's 30 minutes.
Right.
I was doing a whole bunch of other things during that time and it just showed up. Right.
Right.
So
Right.
Uber, right? Instacart. I mean, you can name all these companies where convenience is key. So my advice would be go back and look at every touch point in your patient's process from the time they go to schedule to the time they walk into your door, the time they sit in your chair, the time it comes for treatment to be done, and ask yourself, how can I make it more convenient for the patient at every step? For instance,
Wow.
if you're sending them to the front desk to pay, why? When you could do it at the chair.
Right.
Right? There's no reason to go to the front desk anymore. There's no reason
Right.
to have a reception room anymore. Let's put a chair in there, right? So
Yep.
just go back and rethink things. COVID's been our great reset where it's forced us to go back and look at how we've done things and say, does that still make sense anymore? Because if it's
Right.
not convenient, I can tell you that's going to hurt your growth.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Wow. That's so powerful. I appreciate you sharing that. And this was one of my favorites, just because we tie into the marketing aspect to the overall business operations, relating it to the current environment, all the way down to just helping dental practices and businesses understand their why and how to connect that to their patients, and then really impact the communities that they're working in. So I appreciate you sharing those things. Dr. Phelps, if anyone wanted to connect with you, whether it's a new aspiring dentist or experienced dentist or someone in the dental space as an entrepreneur, like what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, unfortunately, I've got so many companies and so many websites that probably
Yeah.
I'm making one website, like one ring to rule them all right now, but it's not done yet. But eventually that will be thephelpsinstitute.com. But for now, just email me at Chris, CHRIS, at drphelpshelps.com. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Chris at drphelpshelps.com.
Awesome. Awesome. And we'll include that information in this podcast episode, the description. And so thank you guys for listening to Dr. Phelps and his wisdom. And then we'll see you next time.